Hey guys, today we are continuing with our mini series. We're on step 3 today for the families or loved ones that are experiencing someone in active addiction or even just in recovery and sobriety. So we have Kathleen with us for step 3 today. She's going to teach us all the things we need to know on the other side of this.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thanks again for having us on, or me on, in my books.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the book that we use, Paths to Recovery. We call it the hardcover book, right? And then Blueprint for Progress is when we start getting into the 4th step.
Right.
So we're going to focus in the hardcover book today, and we're going to just go ahead with step 3. So step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him, right? So important. And one of the things that I set in one of the men's groups, and I shared it in the other ones, but so I underline, I highlight, I encourage my families to do that. I'm like, my mother would be turning over if she saw me writing in books like this, but it's okay. I want you to do it because you're going to find that you're going to have these moments, right? And so some of the stuff on the side, a lot of it is from when I've attended the men's groups and gotten these ahas. And so made a decision to turn our will. And I think it was Tanner that was teaching the class that day. He goes, our will, those are our thoughts. Right? And our lives, those are our actions. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so important, right? Like made a decision to turn our thoughts. Now, from a mental health perspective, I know we're just going to have these darn thoughts, but what do we do with them? Right? So over a period of time, if I continue to turn them over, the thoughts will have less and less power. But it's not just going to be turn my thoughts over. And then everybody's like, well, I had a craving or I had this thought or I had this experience. Okay. What did you do with it? Right? I turned it over. There you go.
Yeah.
And the more you do it over a period of time, that's why practicing these daily disciplines for all of us, whether you're experiencing an addiction, whether you're experiencing depression or anxiety, turning our will, turning our thoughts. If I have a depressed thought, what am I doing with it? Am I staying in it?
Right.
Or an anxious thought? Or am I turning it over? The action of it. Right? And then acting as if I'm turning it over, I can't go back and I can take it back. Wait a minute, I don't want to give you that, right? But turning our will and our lives over to the care as we understood them, right? Some people have said things like trust and then get out of the way, So in step 1, we learned that many of our problems have resulted from our ineffective efforts to manage our own lives. In step 2, we came to believe that a higher power could restore us to sanity. It naturally follows that the next step would be turning to that power for help. Now, how do we do it? Mm-hmm. Right? Again, I can't God, but God can. I think I'll let him. And so obviously our past efforts had been futile. And if we believe that a power can help us, it makes sense to allow that power to do so. And so the first phrase of it says, made a decision, shows us that we have choice, right? We don't have to do this. But we make this decision when we're ready, that willingness. And, surrender, I think, comes in all of these, right? So surrendering and acknowledging that I've got to keep turning it over. Doesn't mean I'm giving up. It means I'm acknowledging that I am powerless. Step 1.
Yeah.
Right? They all tie back in.
Yes.
Right? And I know it does in yours too.
Yeah.
As well. In many cases, returning to earlier steps over and over again until ready to move to the next one. Okay? What decision we're making. We're asked to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Few of us are able to immediately turn everything in our lives over, making the decision to do so merely a commitment to try. Right?
I love that.
Yes. And they give the example of 3 frogs sat on a lily pad. One made a decision to jump off. How many frogs are left? Well, the answer is 3 because they just made the decision. They didn't take the action.
Yeah.
Right? And so we talk about that a little bit. How are we? It's okay that we're just in the decision part because taking the action is scary. Right? And oftentimes in the past, if we didn't take action or we took action, something didn't go well because the alcoholic or the addict was in this disease, actively in the disease. And so then we blamed ourselves. So now we're afraid to make the wrong decision.
Right.
Right. Most often the alcoholic or the addict in our lives is the person that we first need to turn over. Yeah. Right. We learned in step 1 that we're powerless over alcohol and addiction at the alcoholic and that we cannot control or change them. So we can work on turning our desire to change the alcoholic over to God. We can turn that desire over. That's the piece. We have the thoughts. I should go do this. I should make this appointment for them. I should do this. I should do that. Whoa. Right? We can stop and step back. Let's see. Depending on our higher power can increase our independence from the opinions, needs, and demands of others. We need no longer look outside of ourselves to other people for validation, right? It's probably similar. You're smiling because this is some of the things that you have too, right?
Yeah.
Convinced that a life of self-will will be unsuccessful, right? So I know that having that understanding is so important that if it's not going to be successful unless we turn it over, right? Turning that will. As in step 2, we're free to define God of our understanding, and we do not even have to use the word God. We can seek a higher power, a higher consciousness, or the wisdom and love of the group. What matters is that we set aside our willfulness and determination to be right, and believe that our higher power, however we may define it, will guide us in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is sometimes hard for people that have a very strong faith, that believe that only God, right? Their God that they believe in. So we talk about that again. I bring it back up into why we say this, so that they wouldn't want anyone to not have a chance to have freedom or peace from this disease.
Right.
And so that's why we need to be able to, everyone can be free.
Yeah.
And just if we define how they're going to be free, then it's not going to work.
Well, and still playing God.
There you go.
Know?
Yeah.
I think because I'm trying to control how I think you need to do it.
Yeah.
It's like everybody needs to have their own experience
Right.
with it for them to.
And I think that's a lot of what I see that this is about, is that, we're reading the same book. I share what's in the book, and we have different things that come up, but is to see the family members have the, oh, that's why, or the growth that happens with them. Them talking and sharing about being able to have conversations with their loved one. I think we mentioned it in one of the other podcasts. That sounds like restless, irritable, and discontent. You're right. It does, Mom. But like she said, she would never have known.
Yeah.
Right? Or been able to put it together like that in
Right.
those terms, Remember that asking our higher power for help does not mean asking for specific results. That is asking God to execute our will. Turning our will and our lives over to God means that we put the outcome in God's hands. Right? We talk about how do you do that? And I'd say there's no wrong way. Just start doing it, right? Just start having that conversation. When that talk about our will, not his, I'm going to share one of the things in the members share experience. It says, to turn over my will, I knew that I certainly needed to help with my life, but to turn over my will, now that was different. I was willing to turn over my life if he would just do it my way.
Easy enough.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I'll turn it over, but you got to do it this way. This is what I want to have happen. Like, I want this for my husband, or I want this for my spouse, or I want this for my son, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So we talk about God, guide me in my activities today and keep me from idly dwelling on yesterdays and tomorrows, right? So I always talk about being in the present moment. We talk about mindfulness and breath and prayer and meditation that impact a lot. And I share that with the families. It's about staying right here. That when we go here in the past and think about the past and our worries, we're losing all of the energy we have for today. And it's not good. And if we anxiously anticipate, well, what's going to happen if this happens? Or what if this happens?
Right.
We have no idea. I mean, I wish we did, but I don't even know if I wish we did. Right. So to stay right here in this moment, this is what I have.
Right.
Right. And that's a piece that we keep talking about, bringing ourselves back to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with step 3 in general, it's like I don't have another choice but to turn my will and my life over to this power, because the way I've been living my life hasn't worked.
Right.
And from like a family's perspective, yes, like maybe with everything they've been doing, but if we're truly looking at their experience with their loved one, there have been times when they are not with them and they stayed alive
Yeah.
Like, did you control that? Did you do that? No.
No.
So there's obviously a power working in their life, even if it's just as a protection for your loved one, and you never had control in the first place. And so, like, why wouldn't we turn it over?
Right.
Why wouldn't we trust this power?
Well, and I'm tearing up because I'm thinking about what happened with my husband.
Yeah.
Right. And in that moment, I had such peace, and I kept bringing myself back to this moment, in this moment. Right. And God, your will, not mine. And that I had peace. I'm grateful that he's alive.
Yeah.
But I also had peace that if I didn't keep saying, what if, what if, what
Yes.
if, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? It was just right here, be right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just amazing, that peace that I had. And what was interesting for me, and I shared it with the group because they were all aware of what happened, right? Because I couldn't do the group. And I shared it with the group. I said, what was interesting is I needed to pay attention because I did great then. When I didn't do great was when I went to work and I left him at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to feel this. I couldn't figure out what it was. I'm driving down the road, heading to Impact that Thursday. And I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, why am I feel the fight, flight, or freeze thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to call in sick, maybe something. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I realized it was my own, I wasn't turning it over. Where my thoughts were going is, well, what if something happens when I'm not home?
Right.
And so what I started to do at that moment was I laughed. And the laughter got me, in a place where I could kind of have a good conversation with God. And basically I said, so I wasn't the one that kept him alive last week. You did.
Right.
Right. Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
I wasn't even there in that moment. And so it wasn't like that was going to change if I was there.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's having those moments and taking those experiences that we have and taking a breath and seeing God in everything.
Mm-hmm.
In these moments, the people that we meet, the experiences that we have. One of the things that happened was I went to see him at the hospital. I don't know if you knew this, but I'm going and I'm all confused. I have no idea. It's this big, huge UAB is like I don't know what. It's like a city, right? They got a mall and everything in there and a Starbucks, So my son is with me and we're trying to figure out where he's at. And I hear my name being called, Kathleen. I'm like, oh, nobody knows me here. They're not calling me, right? So I'm not even going to look. And as she called me again, I turned around. It was one of our graduates' sister who comes to our group.
Oh, my God.
What are the chances of her being at that hospital at that moment on a Sunday afternoon?
Wow.
And so I shared that with the group. These things happen. I said, they're like, why do you think that happened? I said, I think it happened for me anyway. The way I took it was for God to let me know he was there.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just like, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But we miss these things.
Right.
And this is where, as we're both tearing up.
I know.
But as these things happen, paying attention to them, acknowledging them.
Yes.
Again, going through the questions is so important. Recognizing, acknowledging it. This right here is where I bring up the sick man's prayer.
Mm.
Okay, in step 3 for family members, because very often they talk about, their thoughts and how angry they are, frustrated, which rightfully so.
Yes.
Right. And I don't use the word lie. I say misrepresented the truth. Because very often the truth has been misrepresented. That's how I say it, right? Because by the time you get to misrepresented the truth and you say that whole thing, you don't seem to be as upset about it because you have to really think about saying those 2 words versus just the word lie.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that's why it works, but that's why I do it. So we talk about sick man's prayer. God, when a person offends me, help me to remember this is a sick person. Help me show the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Show me how I can help them. Save me from being angry, right? And that's the piece on our side of the street, is changing how we react and respond. And when we can understand that it's a disease, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but we don't have to be angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this kind of reminds me of like step 1 of this insane mind, right? You're dealing with someone who's insane. And technically, like, both, if it's a family disease, both parties are insane. But if I'm trying to talk to an addict and they're insane, I'm trying to be reasonable with someone who's incapable of being reasonable. So then I'm the insane one because I'm sitting here trying to do that, and I'm just burning up energy foolishly, as our book likes to talk about. And it just reminds me of like the sick man's prayer is such a great thing to ground me back of like, back on me.
Right.
Grant me the peace here and let me be helpful, which is hard sometimes because I'm like, save me from being angry. I can say that. But I'm like, and be helpful? I don't know about that.
Well, and you talk about the insanity like with an alcoholic or an addict. So it's very similar to what I experienced when I was learning about mental health and working with someone that has psychosis or delusional behavior. We talk about delusions in alcoholism, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that they're psychotic, no. But they're experiencing very similar delusions. I see this right here. Well, it's not there.
Yeah.
But they see it.
Right.
And recognizing and acknowledging in step 1, 2, and 3 that the disease impairs their ability to see the world as other people see it.
Yes.
That's legit.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm trying to reason with someone, like when I've worked with people that are struggling in psychosis, I'm not going to tell them that that's not sitting right there because they believe it's sitting right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But what I can do is have a conversation, connect with them, because if I try to tell them it's not there, they're just going to cut me off.
Yes.
Because I don't believe them, because they do see it.
Right.
And an addict or an alcoholic in the disease is in delusion. That's why there's such a huge focus for them as they do the work. Once they get past these parts, these steps, they do that work looking at the delusions around it.
Right. And that's why I love the sick man's prayer, because it truly is a sick person.
Oh, yeah.
This person is in delusion. They are not in reality. And they believe it. And so, yeah, that's a
And
great.
it's so hard for people that don't have that delusion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all have some delusions here and there, right?
Yeah.
Like things are not as they appear, so to speak, but not to the level of someone with the disease.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop for step 3.
I think so too.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. But until next time, thank you guys.